Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Hector and Mike Experience, Common Sense and Uncommon World. Mike, a lot of activity going on this weekend, especially as we go into this holiday season. I mean, up here in Northern California, which I'm sure down in Southern California, we've been bombarded with news about all these retail thefts that are happening throughout Northern California. I just saw a couple articles of them happening also in Southern California.
I'm nobody tells me that I always thought that you go crazy shopping the day after Thanksgiving and that you actually still wait in line for 4 hours to pay your bill when you buy something. But I guess, that's not the way it is anymore. It's not just in California. I think one of the things that we all need to understand is we're putting our best foot forward here for the rest of the country. I was on the phone this morning on a couple of conference calls with people around the country, and they keep talking about it because it's in their local news. It's not just national news, it's in their local news. And it's raising the question of, is this a foreshadowing of something to come in their local community? And the one that kind of struck me was someone said to me, how does that happen? I mean, that's crazy. And I said to her, I said, well, if you think about what has happened up until now, it makes perfect sense. It's human nature. The reality is in San Francisco, and let's just remember, because it is nationally significant, that it is the same area that has the Speaker of the House, the Governor of California, and the Vice President of the United States. So this is their backyard. This is their home. It makes sense that if you let people go into stores and take up to a certain amount of money of goods and products, and not prosecute them for it, not arrest them for it, not hold them for it, at some point in time, human nature is going to say, well, if I can get away with this, why can't I get away with that? And, if you're going to have a system that has no bail, if you're going to have a system that says, going up to someone and menacing them and taking their wallet or their purse, as long as you don't, shoot the gun at them, but wave the gun at them, is not considered a violent felony. Again, human nature is going to say, well, if I can get away with this, I can get away with that. It's the old, my mother used to call it, you give them an inch, they take a yard. So it's not that, truthfully, I'm surprised that the governor is so surprised about it because, dude, this is your policy at work. These are your district attorneys at work. These are your laws at work. So, this is what you have sown.
Well, the thing is, you've got the governor that just came out last night, and we'll put up a link over in the description of this podcast. And he said, look, what he's going to do. Yeah, he acted all surprised. He says he's disgusted by this, and that he's going to now redirect the California Highway Patrol to go and patrol more of these areas where you have retail sales. Well, the thing is that, okay, so what good is that when you've got, and it's also happening in Los Angeles where you've got these groups of individuals that go and hit 5 or 7 different stores at the same time. And so, are you going to, so that means you're taking away the highway patrol and police officers from patrolling the highways or other parts that also need it, and now you're moving them there. The thing is, if you commit a crime, then you've got to have a penalty for it. And this entire situation of being soft on crime, of saying, oh my God, maybe these people weren't held enough, or maybe these people were held too much, or so forth, and they deserve, a 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th chance. This is what's happening. And you all oftentimes, and we'll try to get on here someone from law enforcement or from the bail industry who really works with these individuals. Is a lot of these folks will end up, if the penalty isn't severe enough, they'll end up graduating and doing other things.
Of course,
they get released back into the community. And they get released back in the community after they commit a crime. Then they get released back in the community again after committing another crime. And it basically means, for a lot of them, is they don't feel as though there's a penalty for their actions. And they just graduate into something worse.
Right. And I don't want to sound like the social liberal in the group. Never been accused of that. Although one time one of my clients called me a feminist because I defended women's rights. I was like, wow, okay. But let me suggest something else. Besides having someone from the bail industry, we ought to get somebody who literally works in the criminal justice reform system. Because I think what's happening now is, and you see, again, it's human nature. From a political standpoint, I mean, this is honestly a great thing for Republicans who lost suburban women in the 2020 election, because now you have these people watching what's going on in the news, and whether it's real or not, there's the perception of, I don't want to go into the downtown area because I may become a victim of crime, and nothing's going to happen. But what it also does, I think, is there are people out there that are legitimately trying to do criminal justice reform that says the 16 or 17-year-old that commits a crime for the first time, don't commit them to a system for the next 25 years. See if there's some kind of diversion or something that can prevent that from happening again. And I think what all of this is going to do is hurt those people. They're going to hurt people that it's going to hurt. I think it's going to hurt the criminal justice reform system that's been out there that they're trying to get done. That some of it actually did get done in the last 2 or 3 years of the administration. But I think that you're going to see a whiplash reaction from people that are going to say that it's going to go back to 3 strikes and you're out. That's going to go back to throw them all in jail. That's going to move the needle in the complete opposite direction. And in the process of that, legitimate efforts by people who want to keep communities safe, but also want to have some kind of criminal justice reform, are going to just get swept up in all of this, and that would be an unfortunate thing. But that's where we're moving to. And you know what? To Gavin Newsom's point, it's not a reallocation of law enforcement resources. It's changing the law so that people who commit crimes are held accountable for what they do. I mean, hopefully I don't get hit by a bolt of lightning here, but it was Rudy Giuliani when, a long time ago, when he was the mayor of New York, that had the broken windows theory in New York City, which is, if you let someone break a window and get away with it, the next thing they're going to do is break into a car, and the next thing they're going to do is commit a robbery. It's, if you let people get away with all those little things, eventually, like you said, they graduate. That's what we've got. It's graduation day in San Francisco for all of the criminals that have been able to run rampant for the last couple of years with all these crazy laws and these district attorneys that don't want to prosecute, and the public and elected officials that let them get away with it. This is what they've sown. And now, all of a sudden it's like reallocate the state police. I mean, how about reallocating or redoing the law? How about sitting and looking and saying, you know what, we went too far. We made a mistake. We have to correct this both at a city level and a state level to protect our citizens. That's what they ought to do.
Well, and the thing is, and it's important to realize that stores will have security guards there, but at the time, they're being asked, security guards, not to get involved, let it go through, because they don't want any of the shoppers there or the security themselves to be harmed or shot, as they have been in other places where they've tried to intervene. Mm-hmm. And so what you see is you've got this criminal element that says, okay, first of all, no one's going to stop me from doing it. Then you've got the police that say, well, it's a theft, and so does it really come up to the top priority of all the other crime that we're trying to solve?
Well, then let me just go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Then you have what's happened in California, where you've made being a police officer, you make them seem like the pariahs of societies. And so you've got all these departments where you've got folks that are retiring, moving to other departments. And so in certain places, you've got shortages. You've got places like Los Angeles and San Francisco and other places that you've got this whole movement you had a movement of defund the police. Mm-hmm. So you had budget cuts, and then, eventually some of those budget cuts didn't come through. But, you make it more difficult to become police officers, so you have less law enforcement, and then comes into the laws that, Mike, that you're talking about. I mean, and we'll make sure we put this in the description. There's an article we ended up reading a couple years ago, when Proposition 47 came into place, where the proposition basically said, if you steal under $950, then that's considered a misdemeanor. It's just basically like you get a fix-it ticket. Right. And what they were doing is they were finding criminals in stores with calculators to make sure that they didn't go over the $950 threshold. Mm-hmm. Well, in this situation, obviously with the Louis Vuitton bag, it's more than $950, but there's still this perception that they're not going to get prosecuted and no one's going to stop them.
Right. Well, it's also, you're absolutely right at that granular level. You're absolutely right. I would also say in regards to the police, the other thing that needs to be added to that equation is these district attorneys like they have in San Francisco, like they have down here in Los Angeles, that don't believe that these are crimes that rise to the level that should be prosecuted. And so the police are looking at this saying, I'm going to be on videotape, okay? Because everybody's got a cell phone these days.
Yeah.
You saw some of the videotape. The one that I saw was, it didn't show all the people running out of the store. It just showed the police congregating on someone and pulling them out of the car and hitting them. And so they know that's going to happen. And they asked the question, I mean, and it's a terrible position to put those folks in, to put those men and women in. They asked the question, is it worth it? Because it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, and that's not a fair thing. But I got to tell you, I think it rises to a higher level, which is that there is a mentality in places like San Francisco that everything is community property. That, it really is an anathema to the capitalists, to the society that says you work, you earn, you can afford, you can buy this. It's like, well, you shouldn't be able to buy the Louis Vuitton for however much it is. If you've got the money, you can go do that. But if I don't have the money, then I can go get it because we both should have it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a mentality that actually exists in this country and certainly exists in the Bay Area. And again, I'm going to loop it back around because this isn't like, Lincoln, Nebraska or, Galveston, Texas. This is a square, 2 or 3 square miles that has the Speaker of the House, the Vice President of the United States, and the Governor of California. And I think that is a reflection of the mentality of people in that area that say it's community property. You don't have a right to have a Louis Vuitton bag unless I have the same right. Maybe you can afford it, I can't, so I can take what I want. And if you let them get away with it, guess what? They will. It's not that hard to figure out.
Yeah, but I'm going to correct you in one of the things. I don't think that this would be happening in Texas because people carry there. So
yeah, no, that I don't think that would be happening in Texas either, and it probably wouldn't be happening in Kenosha, Wisconsin after what we saw this past week. I think people are going to stop and think twice about because Wisconsin apparently is an open carry state as well.
Yeah.
But I do think it is a reflection of the mentality and the philosophical belief that some people have that fundamentally there is no property ownership there.
Right.
And I hate to put it this way, and I don't want to make this into a bigger thing, but we've got the administration in Washington has put up a nominee for comptroller of the currency,
right,
a major position, who forget that she was born in Russia and all that other stuff. She has said on the record that there should be no banks, all of the money should be put in the Fed, that the government should control the money.
Right.
There's that mentality out there, and I think in the extreme, this is what you see.